crowds in here.
Silence.
Okay, I need
Okay, ready?
lost his stone.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please. Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Thursday, September 20th, 2018, 7 p.m. Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Moheski?
Aye.
Patke?
Here.
Pettit?
Here.
Scornia?
Here.
Sullentrup?
Here.
Waterman?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated September 4th, 2018? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Moheski?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia? Sullentrup? Waterman?
Yes.
Having read the minutes, are there any questions or comments?
If not, I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Moheski, seconded by Heidrich, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated September 4, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you. Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the collector's report for June 2018, investment report for June 2018, final pay request, roofing package A, SK Contractors, Inc., and the 2018 fall cleanup, paint up, and fix up campaign. Any questions or comments about any of those items?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Moheski, to approve the items on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? By your vote, you approve the items. Thank you. Public hearings, special use permit, roadside stand, food truck, 216 West Front Street.
Nope, you're fine.
There you are.
All right. So this, if you remember about, I guess it was just last month, we had a request to have the food truck roadside stand on a piece of public property, whether in front of Otis Campbell's or on the city-owned parking lot. It went to planning and zoning, and it was denied, and realized let's come back and think of a plan B. The applicant had resubmitted and realized after talking to the property owner that there was land available to the rear of Otis Campbell's that is privately owned. There's that small driveway there where that gator is usually parked, and then a grassy area to the rear. So they submitted a site plan showing this revised location. You can see where it's attached here, and then a simple sketch of where it'll be located. You can see it is outside of the sidewalk. That was one of our conditions, as long as it's all on private property. And then all cooking equipment has to be placed into the rear as well. It went to planning and zoning last week. They recommended approval of it unanimously. They did have one condition that the fire department did have to approve the new layout and make sure, one, it wasn't blocking any egress out of the back of the Otis Campbell's, and then two, that the cooking equipment wasn't too close to any combustible material. It has to be at least 10 feet from any wooden deck, any combustible walkway or anything like that. So I actually just found out today that the applicant did meet with the fire department, and they had an inspection and realized they would be able to meet those recommendations. We're going to keep that condition. It's in the ordinance that it has to meet all fire code requirements, just so that way in the future they have to make sure they stay 10 feet away from that deck in the back. But other than that, we thought it was a good compromise and a good location for this. So we do recommend approval.
Any questions or comments?
So is that going to be more of a permanent setup then than a food truck sort of setup, since it looks like they're actually putting up some sort of structure there?
No, so this is a pop-up tailgate tent, and those are movable tables. Now, we didn't add these conditions to the ordinance because it's on private property now, but there was a letter from the property owner that's just still going to be 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. But since this can now be controlled by the property owner, we decided not to have those stipulations in the ordinance itself. But yes, it will be temporary.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? Okay. Any other questions? Concerns? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Moheski, seconded by Hydrich, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you. An ordinance granting a special use permit for a roadside stand food truck at 216 West Front Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous items. Any questions or comments?
My only question is does it need a special use permit if it's on a private property? Or at what point do we have
Roadside stand.
a roadside stand? I get that, but if it's going to be a tent and tables, then it's really not a roadside stand, or is that?
Right, and so if it were not the road, if it were just part of the operation of the business, there are different stipulations they have to meet for having outdoor kitchen. It'd be considered an outdoor kitchen for Otis Campbell's, and there's some building code requirements they have to go through. If it's defined as a roadside stand, which you can have a roadside stand up to 10 times in one location in a year without a special use permit. Once you're there more than 10 times in a year, you have to get approval from council. And so, yeah, if it were considered part of Otis Campbell's operation, that's actually an expansion of their business, and there would be some extra stipulations they would have to meet per the building code.
Okay.
So they aren't anticipating being operational more than 10 times per year?
No, they are. So if it was going to be 10 times or less, we can approve that in-house. Any roadside stand that's only set up in a location 10 times in a year, so they could come in with a list of locations and have every property owner sign off on it and say we're not going to be more than 10 times, we can sign off on that upstairs. But once they want to make it more than 10 times and it's semi-permanent where there could be some equipment that's left there, in this case it's not, but in other situations it could, it has to go through council approval.
So that's what I was asking. So they are not anticipating being there more than 10 times per year at this point?
No, they are.
They are.
Yeah.
That's why
That's
we're
how come
doing
we're
an
approving
ordinance.
it.
Why it's here.
Okay, got
That's
it.
why it's here.
Sal, I would just want to add that the applicant, the property owner, obviously came up with a solution, but I hope this doesn't stop the discussion around our
Correct.
ordinances related to
Right.
roadside stands in general.
We don't want to keep kicking the can down the road for that. That is a discussion item on the October planning and zoning
Thank you.
agenda.
Anyone else?
An ordinance granting a special use permit for a roadside stand food truck at 216 West Front Street in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Moheski.
Aye.
Hydrich.
Aye.
Pettit.
Yes.
Skornia. Yes. Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Waterman.
Yes.
Sullentrop.
Yes.
Patchke.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Rezone parcel IDs 10-5-21.0-00009.088 and 10-5-21.0-009-089.000 from R1A Single Family Residential to C2 Commercial, General Commercial.
All right. If you remember, 2 months ago, we saw a portion of this development come through a rezoning and an annexation. This is the Camp Schrader lot. These two parcels that I have highlighted were meant to be part of that rezoning and that redevelopment, and they just forgot to add these parcels when they filled out the application. Didn't realize it was part of the area that they had purchased. So just a refresher, this red is what was rezoned to C2 last time, and then this blue was actually annexed as multifamily. And so what they're requesting is to take these two parcels, this one's 3,000 square feet and this one's 10,000 square feet, and make it C2 general commercial. Honestly, by themselves, they're not really buildable as commercial, but it's going to be part of this overall development. So I believe they're just requesting the rezoning to clean up the whole area once they're ready to actually develop it. So again, we recommended approval of the first one. We recommend approval of this one as well.
Any questions or comments?
Sal, the section that's left off there between there and the highway, is that a right-of-way or is that another piece of property?
Right here?
The right-of-way jogs and down a little bit further. That's
That's
why
all
do we-
right away.
That's all right away?
Anything that's not colored is right away.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. All right.
Anything else?
Wasn't the last change one that required us to notify the neighbors?
And we did so on this one as well.
And we had to for this one also?
Yeah, and we had one property owner show up to planning and zoning, and they actually talked to the applicant. They were more concerned about if this access was, they're going to propose access here. And again, we don't require that information for rezoning, especially if it's unplanned, but the applicant actually did say that they are currently working on an access off of Pottery Road, so.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to accept this item.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Hydrich, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance rezoning parcel IDs 10-5-21.0-000-099-088.000 and 10-5-20-000-089-089.000 from R1A Single Family to C2 General Commercial in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Padkey.
Introduced by Councilman Patke. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Any questions about any of this?
An ordinance rezoning parcel IDs 10-5-21.0-099-088.000 and 10-5-20-0-009-089.000 from R1A Single Family to C2 General Commercial in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Moheski.
Aye.
Hydrich.
Aye.
Pettit.
Yes.
Scornia.
Yes.
Holtzmeyer.
Aye.
Waterman.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Yes.
Patke.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Move off of that. I think there's a misspelling in the analyst. It makes sense to approve the request. I think it should be, it makes sense to approve the request. I think it's just a typo. Under the analyst.
Staff report, yes.
It makes send, S-E-N-D, to approve.
Sense.
Yeah, just, might want to please.
Fiscal year 2018-2019 budget of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Mary?
Good evening. Included in the packet is the budget for the fiscal period October 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019 budget. The proposed budget includes estimated revenues of $26,703,695, along with other financing sources and projected reserves, coming up to a total revenue balance of $62,680,325,000. Estimated expenditures and expenses, including other financing uses, total $39,731,865 for a total projected fund balance as of 2019 of $22,948,460. So that's very good. It's pretty comparable to last year's budget. The general fund balance, just so you know, is approximately 4.3 million of that. So that's very good. That's all I really have unless you have questions.
What was that last comment you just said?
The general fund
General
balance.
fund balance, okay,
Which is part of that 22 million,
okay,
is 4.3 million.
okay.
So that's very good.
I didn't hear the first part. Thank you.
It's a healthy fund balance.
Any questions or comments regarding the budget?
Thank you.
Make a motion.
Second.
Yeah, it's a public hearing. So is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this item? Okay, so we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Patke, to accept the budget into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance approving the budget of the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that approves our budget for the year. Any questions or comments?
An ordinance approving the budget of the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri for fiscal year 2018-2019. Moheski?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup? Patke?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the item. Thank you.
Citizens' comments?
Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on any item?
Good evening. I'm Roger Langendorfer. I guess most of you probably know who I am. I have a business in the industrial park, and I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about the Bluff Road project that we have going on. A lot of talk about it, and today was kind of the icing on the cake. I stopped at Bluff Road Station, and truck driver was there. One of our city employees was there, and he was an older fellow that was trying to get to our place of business. And one of your street employees, I suppose he was stopping on his break or whatever to get a soda. He took the time to direct the truck driver up to the next exit and around. And truly a customer service situation, you know, not a bureaucratic government sort of a thing that we see in Washington, D.C., Jeff City, or some of our other surrounding municipalities. So I just wanted to pass that along, and I wanted to pass along to you also that we process and ship several hundreds of tons of steel, metal, and cardboard a month. And we have had absolutely not a problem in the world with the Bluff Road project. Anxious for it to get open on the other end. We've heard a lot of good comments about the part, even if they have to drive a little bit farther, you know, to get to us. But what has been done so far, everyone's happy with. And I know that probably there's a lot of times, and if there was a problem, I'd be the first one to be raising hell about it. So I just wanted to kind of pass along to you that I don't know, that John has really done an outstanding job, and I think Gretchen will probably attest to the Cedar Street project. We had city employees that were every morning walking up and down Cedar Street to communicate with the residents, the patrons on Cedar Street. And I thought no better job could be done than what they did on Cedar Street. And yet our city employees, street department, KJ Understall has done, by the way, a pretty nice job, too. We'll give him a little bleep, too. But anyway, I certainly hope that we can keep John and the rest of the employees that are involved in this happy so we can continue on with the Oak Street project and some of the other ones in Washington. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Roger. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Raj.
Report of department heads?
Any department heads?
Yeah, I can give you an update on Bluff Road.
Okay.
Just to give everybody an update, I know Greg with Missourian asked for one earlier this week as well. We are moving along well ahead schedule. We're approximately 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the completion date of October 20th. This week we're working on the signal work. I don't know if anybody's driven out there, but the signal heads have been removed from the span wires on 100. They've been shut down for couple weeks now, but they removed the signals in order to get the controller box shifted to the west to get the turn lane in, the westbound turn lane in. Those signals will go back up, so I don't want anyone to get a false sense of security that they're out of place right now, but they will go back up and be functioning by the time the project is complete. Hopefully next week we'll be pouring the concrete drives to the Zix gas station. That was part of the project since we did elevate the road approximately 4 feet, or 3 feet at that location, that it did require a new concrete drive to tie grades in. Ameren is also going to be installing utility poles hopefully next week, so the utility poles will be back. We did have to shut down kind of the that main transmission line, but they're feeding electric from a different way. The week of October, let me see here, the first week of October, we would anticipate paving. It should not affect anybody in the industrial park. We did pull paving past the Clemco entrances in order to make sure that did go pretty smooth. So it shouldn't affect anybody. Should be able to access the site, hook up to the paver, and leave the site. So we're moving along pretty well. Other than that, if you have any questions, I can definitely answer them.
How's the utilities coming, like AT&T and such like?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. We had a couple hiccups with utilities, specifically Spire Gas and AT&T. Spire was actually supposed to be out of our way by the time we got to the project. They were not, but we were able to put a temporary tank up by the sheer lawn and landscape. So I don't know if anyone noticed barrier walls kind of around there. But that's since been taken care of. That was up for about a week and a half, 10 days. We did uncover a couple AT&T lines that were sitting right over top of the old culverts, which meant we had to leave one culvert in place. We did grout full that to its totality, so there will be a small change order from that, but it's pretty minor. Otherwise, we would have had to wait quite some time, so we made a decision to pump some grout flowable fill into that pipe. It's just that it's a concrete pipe just left in place, doesn't affect any of our utilities at all. So I don't have any problem. They worked underneath of it. So, I mean, overall, it's gone very smooth. I think the weather had we had some pretty good weather to get some things done. So.
Anyone else? Okay. Did you have anything else, John? Or
No.
Okay. All right. Darren?
I just want to bring it to your attention at the next council meeting, the Parks Department will be bringing forward several bid recommendations, several roofing packages. This is from the insurance claim that we'll be bringing forward, as well as the resurfacing of the tennis court. So I just want to make you aware of that we'll be bringing that forward.
Okay. Thank you. Tony?
Good evening. The street department, or the landfill, I would say, we're going to bring some proposals also with a couple ordinances on the first city council meeting also. As you know, with the landfill staying open now, we had to really look back at some of our equipment out there. It was all kind of getting towards the end of its lifespan. So the most important piece we have out there is that trash compactor. It runs every day. It's 6 days a week. It is 11 years old. And if we have a major failure with that and that thing is down for several days or longer, the chance of getting a rental in a timely manner is not really a good thought. So we looked at purchasing a new one, roughly around $800,000. And then we started looking and we got proposals for to refurbish the one we have. We got a couple different estimates ranging from $500,000 down to almost $200,000. All with different varying degrees of refurbish. From a ground-up restoration with new serial numbers and brand new everything, down to, hey, let's rebuild this, let's rebuild this. We'll refurbish these, redo all the seals, hydraulic lines. So John and I and the team will look at making a decision, and hopefully by next council meeting we'll have a plan. The second part of it is Mary recommended we do 2 separate ordinances, is for while this piece of equipment is getting refurbished, we do have to rent one. Some of the vendors did not have rental options, so their estimates were about 10 grand a month. One of the vendors that did give us a bid also does rental and will cut us a better rate on a rental price if we choose their service. So,
if you do a full refurbishment of it, approximately how long would that take that you'd need to rent a
All of them seem to think it'd be no more than 3 months. Even the one of them said that, listen, if we rent you the equipment, if it goes over 3 months, we won't charge you anymore for the rental. So,
And that's the one, Tony, that if we use them, they'll give us a better rate, or no?
it's the what?
Is that the outfit that if we use them, they'll give us a better rate on the rental?
Yep.
They're the ones that said that?
Yep. So in line with the rental, you also got to pay about $2,500 to get it shipped and picked up, because it's not an easy thing to ship. So look for
Where
that.
do you go for that? How far do you have to go for something like that?
Luckily for us, it would be Herculaneum.
Oh, okay.
Some of the other options were Iowa or Canada. So
So Herculaneum is the location that has the one that you can rent as well.
I would also add, this was looked at as part of some of the equipment upgrades that we'd have to do when we did our landfill evaluation that we presented to you, when we did that change in policy moving forward to the landfill. So this is part of that. We actually budgeted quite a bit more with the total restoration for that. But as Tony hit on, we're going to be looking at this pretty close because there's no reason to replace a rear end of a compactor if it's in decent condition, especially if it's half the cost of doing a full restore. If it goes, you're kind of rolling a little bit of a risk dice, but it seems to be like it's on the right side of that risk. So that's what we're going to be looking into.
yeah, and we've been doing oil samples. We did all new oil samples on the differentials, the hydraulics, the engine oil, and so all the oil samples come back good. There's no metal flakes in them, and they don't look like they're showing any excessive wear. So the dealer's like, we take them apart, we reseal them, we'll put them all back together, and worst case, if a rear end goes out in 2 years and you have to spend $30,000 to get it replaced, you're still saving a couple $100,000 on top. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tony. Anyone else?
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance amending the 2018 budget of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. Who wants, is this the fire? This is for the rescue truck.
Good evening. Thank you for having this. This is the budget amendment. If I correct me, the amount, can you give me the amount?
I'm sorry, the amount?
Yeah.
$56,300.
Okay, we just want to make sure you guys were aware the 50,000 of it is a budget adjustment, and I'd have to yield to correction. I'd have to yield to the finance department to give you some more specifics on that, but I think you guys have been briefed on that. In addition to that, we do have a change order on the rescue truck. 2 items. One is the reel system that holds our hydraulic reels for the rescue tools. They are 1,200 PSI hydraulic hoses. The bid that we got originally had a different style than what we want. And the reason for the different style is it allows it to recess up into the top of the truck, allowing the compartment to be utilized more efficiently. If we do not use this option and raise the hoses up, giving us a space, we would have to change the location of our rescue tools, which changes our deployment, tactics, and the safety of having rescue tools in the back. So we don't want to have them right in the back. That way, if there is any, unforeseen incident where you can't get into it if the truck is rear-ended. So that is one of the change orders. The other change order is to add a 4-cylinder to the air system that is on the truck. Will have an air cascade system allowing us to fill our cascade bottles, SCBA bottles that we wear on the back that you guys see typically called air mask. The reason for adding the 4th bottle in 2018, the NFPA standard for SCBAs has changed. The ability for us to get the pressure that we currently have is pretty much not available. They're basically ruling it out. They're kind of phasing that out. So we would have to go from our 2216 PSI to most likely a 4500 PSI. And if that does to be the case, this would allow us to have sufficient air to refill our air packs on a fire. Now we do also have our support air truck, but we want to make sure that the rescue truck is equipped for the need. So those are the 2 change orders. Do you guys have any questions on the change orders or anything else for the fire department while we're here? Myself or Chief Holtmeyer would be happy to help answer.
Excuse me, Nick, while you're
Yeah.
here, this is going back to the Missourians article. Could you enlighten us just a few minutes, a little bit more detail about that article and your opinion on your view on that?
Okay. I assume you're talking about the article from Missourian on staffing of firefighting.
Yes, sir.
What they did is they did a comprehensive, they did a good job. It was a good article on the entire region. The challenge with articles on the entire region is they're just small parts of each one, or else they would have to dedicate the entire paper to it. Right now, the Washington Fire Department, we feel like we're doing quite well. Obviously, like Chief said, the other meeting a month or so ago, if we had 30 people show up, want to volunteer, we're not going to turn them away. But we have had good recruitment lately. In the last 4 or 5 months, we have 4 members that have been accepted and are going through their training process. We currently have 4 applications that are in process and going through ours and yours, the city's process of vetting and drug screening and physicals and all that stuff. So that gives us a new total of 8, along with we have 5 members that just completed the Firefighter 1 and 2 program and are testing for that to become full firefighters. So our ranks are growing. We are doing well. We are extremely lucky. I get that a lot of questions from all over. How do we do it? How do you do it? We're extremely fortunate, and a lot of it, I believe, has to do with the community we have, being all members of Washington and our overwhelming willingness to serve. So I appreciate that. We are doing well, and we see no reason not to be able to continue our volunteer service that we have since 1852.
Yeah, and thank you. And I have seen a lot of new faces at the meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Just a quick note, October 7th, correct, Chief? We are going to have an open house at the firehouse from 1 to 4 in the afternoon, so feel free to stop by or let us entertain your kids for a little while or something. So I know all the parents will enjoy that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance amending the 2018 budget of the City of Washington, Missouri. Moheski?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup? Patke?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a service agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Unsolve LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. Lisa?
evening. So Unsolve is the new company that runs our Code Red system. So this is simply a renewal of our Code Red contract. It is a 3-year contract. The biggest change in it is they gave us unlimited minutes. We did have a certain amount of minutes, not that we ever came close to it, but now we have unlimited messaging and so forth. And that also saved us $2,500 every year. So it went from $15,000 a year down to $12,500. So over the course of the 3-year contract, we'll save $7,500.
In the course of a year, how many Code Red calls do we usually have, or?
Well, it not only does it cover our the stuff that we would send out, but it also covers all of our weather warning. So really, that is obviously dependent upon the weather that we get.
Okay.
We've been using our Code Red system for a lot of the drills that the emergency manager puts on, whether it's the tornado drill, the earthquake drill. I think we sent one out for the police department this year, in which we were looking for someone. Our goal is to actually get more departments involved in the use of the Code Red system. Sal could use it for some of his stuff, notifying different businesses and so forth. So our goal is to actually get it out a little bit more than what we have been utilizing it.
Because it's a great source of
It is.
informational
Yeah.
response.
Some of the things that we did several years ago, we did a lot of pre-planning in reference to that. So under Chief Holmick, he actually had a lot of the areas that may possibly be affected if, like, say, Lions Lake dam would break, or one of the dams in one of the subdivisions would break. So we actually created groups that we could send those mass messages out to at one time to inform them, hey, you need to get out. So there's a lot of different groups that are set up in the system.
That's cool.
So
We also had a lot of people, I think, sign up this past year.
We did. When I provided Darren a report earlier, I think there were about 161 people that have signed up so far this year. Some of that could be updating their information. We've, tried to get it more out to the public. Code Red is available not only to the citizens of Washington, but also to our citizens that are in our fire district. So they are also able to sign up for those. So
It's good. It's a good program.
yes. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a service agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and OnSolve LLC. Moheski?
Yep.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a Second Amendment to lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Franklin County Catholic Church Real Estate Corporation.
Introduced by Councilman Moheski.
This is an amendment that was requested by St. Francis Borgia. They requested this in the hopes so that the parking lot, if you'll notice, the only change was the days. I think it states no events may take place on the lot between the hours of Saturday at 3 p.m. to Sunday at 1 p.m. with the exception of the fourth weekend of April. That weekend is when downtown has their annual Barbecue and Blues Fest. But all the rest of throughout the rest of the year, during those times, we will not have any scheduled events. I mean, obviously it's a public parking lot, but I mean, we would not have any events set aside like we do for the Barbecue and Blues Fest. So we talked back and forth. We provided it to Mark, and this is an amendment to that agreement.
Has there been an issue with that or something?
Well, there was a complaint. I think there was some concerns this past year. The church had received some complaints. There was a fundraising event that took place the same weekend of the Barbecue and Blues Fest, and unfortunately it was started early on Sunday morning, and so all of the masses that they had that day, there was a fighting for some parking, essentially, and that's when they brought the issue to us. I brought the issue back to downtown Washington. We all sat down. They determined that was something that they would not like to see in the future, but they can live with this one weekend. There's one Saturday mass at 4:30 that would be, you'd have a conflict. But other than that, with this amendment, you would not have any other conflicts.
So when Wine Fest happens, the parking lot is open to park.
Mhm.
There's no tent there?
Correct.
Essentially, that's what we're talking,
Yes, it's just a public parking lot. It's a public parking lot all the time as far as that's our lease arrangement with them.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, but the
Blues Fest is the only time there's a tent and food.
That's
vendors
when they set up the barbecue groups
Barbecue
that go
groups.
ahead, all their RVs, et cetera. That's when
Right.
they use that parking lot. And if that was designed, and we put those improvements within that parking lot for those purposes, so that we've got those electric outlets, et cetera. They pay for the meter on that, but we provide maintenance for the lot otherwise.
So where does the chili cook-off stands go?
Chili cook-off stands go in the streets, on Main Street, and
Under the farmer's market?
So we don't use the parking lot?
we don't use the parking
We
lot.
have in the past, though.
Not to my knowledge.
The main.
I'm not going to say for all of them, but
Main
I
thing
don't.
was the car show from Grace's Place Car Show, and they decided not to continue their car show.
Right.
So now there's no issue.
But they felt that they wanted to have something in the agreement to make sure that this was in place. I suggested the language. They were fine with it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a Second Amendment to lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Franklin County Catholic Church Real Estate Corporation. Moheski? Heidrich? Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Abstain.
Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract with KJU Inc. for the 2018 Oak Street Improvement Project in the City of Washington, Missouri.
Pettit.
Introduced by Councilmember Pettit.
Okay, I'm sure everyone's aware of the improvements, or lack thereof, maybe on Oak Street throughout the summer. The city has been putting in, or has been upsizing the water line, replacing the water line over summer in preparation for this project. I have been receiving some concerns about the, for lack of better term, shoddy asphalt work that was done. Keep in mind that is temporary asphalt used instead of rock. We typically just put rock down, but we did authorize, since it is in the downtown area and does get utilized, to put in what's called cold patch. That will be removed, and a full overlay will be done with this project. So I know I have not addressed that in the past. This was part of our 2018 budget. We did hold or transfer the dollars over because it will extend out into the 2019 budget. As you can see there, we did receive a bid very close to the engineer's estimate, and I can assure you that's my estimate because I put 60 cents on the end of it. So that's definitely an engineer's estimate. But the project would be completed by November 7th, which does get pretty late into the paving season. There is a little concern of cold weather through that time, but really December is really the timeline when you really start getting worried about cold weather situations, and I've been told by the contractor they would like to move quickly on this project. So the plan right now is to start notifying property owners tomorrow, specifically out to them. I know maybe some people have been getting calls, what's going on? Well, I didn't know if it would be approved first, and I didn't want to spread false information. So we'll start notifying everybody tomorrow. And the plan would be is to close a substantial part of Oak Street to give the contractor as much room as he can to work to get it done. There's very few residents on there. We will work as diligently and closely with them as possible. There's really not much freight or any kind of deliveries that go there. So I don't feel like that's, and with the streets being gridded downtown, I don't think that's such a big issue. So we'll work with everybody on getting that taken care of. It does have some storm sewer work. We will be grouting or filling in some old storm sewer pipes. So there's also a stormwater component of this too, to kind of get some of the water off the street, get it in the pipes where it belongs. I can answer any questions.
What about the ADA at each intersection? Is that going to be addressed?
Yes, ADA will be handled at 5th and Oak for sure. 4th and Oak. Anything that has a ADA ramp will be torn out and replaced with ADA ramps as per our ADA transition plan. That would also extend to the north side of 4th Street as well, since there's no really overlay going beyond that point, but the ramps will also be upgraded. So it does fit in with our ADA transition plan, focusing on the heavy utilized downtown facilities. And I don't know if anyone's been on Oak Street in quite some time, but there is some sidewalk risk there as well. So I think it's kills a few birds with one stone.
It's not as bad as Edward Place, is it, John?
Edwards Place is actually a pretty average street in town. So.
Pretty good, actually. I drove on it the other day.
That's actually a pretty good question. We have implemented it's called the PASER rating. I mean, bringing that up. PASER rating is a 1 to 10 rating on asphalt. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. It's recognized by American Council of Civil Engineers, American Society of Civil Engineers, East West Gateway, everything else is required in all of our grants. We really have never had a policy per se of how low the streets should get on the PASER rating. I've kind of implemented a 4 is the number. We only have a handful of streets that are approaching a 4, but they will on the budget for next year. So Edwards Place, I think, was a 5 to a 6, to be honest. So anyway, just give you all a background how we make that decision.
Cracks and stuff in it.
John, is this all the way? Is it all of Oak Street?
No, I'm sorry. It's Oak Street from 5th to 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so 2 blocks, and it's total reconstruction, sidewalks, curb and gutters, both sides, with a substantial overlay.
New base, the whole works.
No new base. The base is in good shape, but we will put a leveling course to smooth the street out. A lot of these streets are pretty thin. I don't want to remove base and have to put it back in. It doesn't make much sense to do that.
Okay.
Anything else?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract with KJU Inc. for the 2018 Oak Street Improvement Project in the city of Washington, Missouri. Moheski?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Grace's Place Crisis Nursery, Inc. for a Missouri non-for-profit corporation.
Patke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke. This is the lease that we agreed to with Grace's Place.
Correct, and this is on a year-to-year basis at the council's request.
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Grace's Place Crisis Nursery, Inc., a Missouri not-for-profit corporation. Moheski.
Aye.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Pettit.
Yes.
Scornia.
Yes.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Waterman.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Yes.
Patke.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of agreement to sell and purchase real estate by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Stephen T. Sullentrup.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the agreement, the purchase agreement for the property at
320 Lafayette. So this is the house that we had up. We received 2 bids on the project, one from Steve at $75,150 and one from Downtown Washington, Inc. at a total of $75,000. So we did put a stipulation among other stipulations within the bid package that would be the minimum bid of $75,000.
Any comments or questions? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an agreement to sell and purchase real estate by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Stephen T. Sullentrup. Moheski.
No.
Heidrich.
Aye.
Pettit.
Yes.
Scornia.
Yes.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Waterman.
No.
Sullentrup.
Stay.
Patke.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, Stonecrest subdivision, plat 14.
All right, this is the next phase for Stonecrest, and it is finally the phase that connects Earthcrest Drive to Vernacey Drive. This is a connection we've laid out in our master plan since 2013, and then obviously it was predicted before that when Stonecrest was first being developed, I think since 2007. If this is faint on here, but this is Windcrest Drive and Northcrest Drive. When this was approved last February, it was under the condition that no additional lots could be placed on this property, putting traffic onto Earthcrest Drive until this connection was made to alleviate traffic concerns onto Earthcrest Drive. There are 2 entrance points currently into Stonecrest, but with all the development going on here, there was enough traffic going onto Earthcrest that for public safety reasons, we wanted that connection before they added any lots. So just going over the zoning, I wanted to touch on this is because this map, as you see it online today, is not entirely accurate. We don't have the ability to show split zoning properties on our map. We have to follow property boundaries. It was also in February when they got the Windcrest plat done. The applicant rezoned a portion of this, and so that's what this was, to R1D, allowing the 7,500 square foot lots, and then left the outer portion of the property R1A, which requires the 10,000 square foot lots. And I just wanted to point that out because this shows like it's all R1A, but that ordinance was approved, and there is a portion in the middle here that is R1D. It just doesn't reflect it on the map. So here's the plat that was submitted. It's an additional 31 lots. They show the 35-foot width on Earthcrest Drive extension and Northcrest Drive extension per the code. This portion of Mooncrest Drive is only 30-foot wide, but that is a new section of the code that was approved last year where if you have less than 10 homes and parking on one side and it terminates in a cul-de-sac, you can have a narrower street. And so they took advantage of that here to narrow this portion up, and they do show the new 97-foot cul-de-sac that is required per the code that was adopted last year. They have all the appropriate easements shown here. They do not have any land set aside for stormwater. However, they have stated in the past, as with the previous phases, that stormwater is handled for the development in its entirety, and that has been verified by engineering and will continue to be verified as they put in these lots. We haven't gotten construction plans yet, but that's not required till they do a final plat. You can see this section here. They are proposing to be common ground. This will be dedicated to the neighborhood association. This will not be anything that's publicly maintained. This is really where the creek is, so there won't be a lot of maintenance required there anyway. But that's just something to point out. They did not extend the lot lines all the way to the property boundary. So that I want to point out, this is the master plan, this section of town where we have our future road connections. Obviously, in number 12, this is the connection they're making to Vernacey Drive. I'm going to point them out here. So this is Vernacey Drive, and here's the connection they're proposing. So Northcrest Drive is actually the one that makes the connection, and Earthcrest wraps around here. And so you can kind of see that's in the general area. We have amended this earlier this year. So 11, when this was created in 2013, connection 11 was from Rabbit Trail Extension over to English Crest Drive. And this was going to be the east-west connection to get people from Rabbit Trail and hopefully alleviate some concerns with Rabbit Trail and Highway 100. There was 2 reasons we moved this up, and we amended this to move this connection 11 up to here. First of all, it was that we did some additional studying of the area and realized that the creek in this area is much wider. It's not as deep, but it's much wider, and so the bridge would have to be significantly longer in this area than it is here. So this is going to be a taller structure, but it's actually shorter. Secondly, even though English Crest Drive does have a stub here, there is going to be, with all the development with Weber Estates and then the new houses off of Rabbit Trail, there's going to be a lot of traffic that's going to be utilizing this connection to get to Phoenix Center for all the retail. And we thought it would be more appropriate to get it as close as to this intersection as possible rather than have it make multiple turns through a residential subdivision. And so that's the reasoning why we moved, the 2 reasons why we moved this and up here. And whenever Victorian Manor was developed a couple years back, they actually donated 25 foot of this right-of-way up here. So we already have half of the right-of-way that's required for a bridge that would need to be put in at this location. So I just wanted to point that out. Because of our condition of approval, we added that connection to Rabbit Trail is proposed to be in this location. So essentially, Earthcrest Drive would continue west. And get a better aerial. Well, we continue westward this way to Rabbit Trail, where the bridge would be.
Sal, where's that about at on Rabbit Trail again? I mean, I know they're.
I think it's when the concrete ends, it starts asphalt, right?
Yeah, it's actually right after the last condo. The last town
condo is concrete, and then it starts asphalt.
Yes, so this is kind of blurry here, but you see all these narrow lines.
So
these are all the
that's
townhomes.
Brighton there. I think that's that first set of streets there is Brighton.
Yeah, they're to the
yes. So this is
to the
Brighton
west
right
of
here.
Rabbit Trail Drive. There they are.
This is Brighton.
That's
and,
Brighton there.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more south.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a portion of right of way that Victorian Manor donated whenever they developed. So I'm sure that was part of the discussion that this would be a connection in the future anyway. I wasn't obviously part of that conversation, but I'm assuming that's why the right of way was donated.
That's exactly it.
Exactly right.
So
this makes a lot of sense, Sal. This is exactly what should be done. Not having that connection to Rabbit Trail through a subdivision is definitely the
right. And so we are, the conditions of approval that we added, the first 2 are standard we do for all subdivisions. Fire hydrants must be placed in accordance with the fire and subdivision codes. That's one that would be required anyway, but we call it out now because we did amend where fire hydrants go in 2017. They have to be, the distance is the same, but you have to count, you have to start at an intersection and then start your distances that way. And they're not shown on the plat, which they don't have to be now, they just do for construction plans. The second is the capability of existing stormwater retention must be verified. Again, they've done that phase by phase, but they'll have to do that again for this next phase, and John will check that once we get construction plans. My last condition was more specific to this project. A 4-way intersection must be platted and constructed where Earthcrest Drive and Northcrest Drive meet on the plat. So that's in this location, because if this property to the west were ever sold, we didn't want it to be developed, and so it would block that connection to Rabbit Trail that we've now moved in the master plan. The applicant, who couldn't make it tonight, has stated that they are okay with that condition. P&Z also recommended that condition. and they are already drawing up construction plans to show that, that construction and that stub to the west. There is a sentence here that I actually took out of the ordinance. Vernacci Drive and Northcrest Drive must terminate at this intersection. We wanted Vernacci Drive to extend and have a stop sign. Well, this would be a four-way stop. So we have a stop sign here for Vernacci Drive, Earthcrest Drive, and Northcrest Drive, and then there would be a stub to future development. And that was because we wanted all street names to terminate at an intersection. We thought that was cleaner. We'd avoid any situation like we have in Windy Hills where two streets just stop together and there's no real separation between the two. That's why we had that extra sentence in the condition. At P&Z, the applicant had wished that we adjust that and that this section, Northcrest Drive, extends up to the intersection at
By Phoenix Park.
Phoenix Park, yeah, thank you. We didn't necessarily recommend that. We thought it was cleaner because this is an actual four-way intersection. But at the end of the day, that doesn't affect this plat. The name of the streets have to be approved by emergency services and then shown on the final plat. And so I took that sentence out here, Vernacci Drive and Northcrest Drive must terminate the intersection, because at the end of the day, when they have the final plat, which the final plat will come back here, we'll make sure we have approval from emergency services on where the street names terminate and all that. So I just wanted to point that out. That's why this sentence is no longer in the ordinance. And then this is the last thing they added to show that they do meet with the new width of the cul-de-sac. They're wanting to put some landscaping in the middle of the cul-de-sac, and so we said they have to show that any fire apparatus would still be able to make it around. And then they're proposing a median similar to they have on the other entrances. This is where Vernacci Drive would come in and have a median. They have to show that the median's far enough back where a fire truck will be able to make the turn in. Again, this is actually not required for a preliminary plat because that would be shown in construction, but they wanted to submit it early. So.
You mentioned the bridge.
Yes.
Developer responsible for the bridge?
Actually, no. So the bridge that we would be proposing for that connection, since we already own half of the right-of-way, and there's a piece there that is still owned by the Equicamps, I believe, that would be essentially the other portion of the right-of-way. We'd have to work on that. The developer's property ends, the property they own ends before the bridge. And so it'd be something we could negotiate maybe a cost share with, but since they have this connection here and there are two entrances on Stonecrest, per the fire code, they wouldn't be required a fourth. We couldn't force them to put in a fourth entrance. We would just prefer it for traffic reasons and because of the master plan connection.
And Sal says a bridge. I mean, it could just as easily be a box culvert of some sort, too, to keep the cost down. That's one of the reasons why I moved to that location is much more valuable because you have tall, narrow sides rather than something that's real long that would require a bridge. You could only get a 10-foot box culvert. So with that, we have the situation with Rabbit Trail Drive at Phoenix Center, Rabbit Trail at Phoenix Center and Highway 100, being quite honestly one of probably our worst intersections in town. And I believe when Vic Horstkamp developed his property off of Rabbit Trail Drive, we discussed really three options to try to alleviate that. One would be a reconfiguration up at Phoenix Center, which that's owned by a private individual. It's a private easement essentially. It's not really a city street. The other would be a connection down to Beaker, and the other one would be an east-west connection. And those were kind of all discussed as being prioritized. Any kind of commercial development that draws a lot of residential people, you want to connect them as fast as possible, and Sal's already hit on that. So regardless where this discussion goes of who pays for the bridge, right, it's a valuable asset to everyone. And with the discussion that you had even a couple weeks ago with the fire truck situation up on South Point Road, I mean, any connection through there, I know it sounds like I'm trying to sell an idea, but this is a valuable connection, probably one of the biggest one we have in town to really alleviate a lot of complaints and concerns and everything else that we all get. So just wanted to.
Let's pray.
Yeah, and we haven't, put anything in the budget. Obviously, we have the budget now for this bridge, or culvert, whatever it be. We want to wait and see what this development here to the west looks like, and how their connections are, how they're going to extend Earthcrest Drive to that area. And then if it comes sooner rather than later, then we'll talk about how we can get that infrastructure in. But for now, we'll wait until that property actually develops.
Sal, did we get anywhere? We talked after that. We talked about the park not having a name, a street name.
Well, that was brought up by the applicant. My opinion is that it is a driveway off of Vernacey Drive. Phoenix Park has an address off of Vernacey Drive, and so I don't think you necessarily need a street name for it.
Okay.
I mean, you always could, but it does have an address off of Vernacey Drive, and it's just essentially a driveway to a park, is how I saw it.
I know we talked about it that night, so I was just...
Right, and I think it was brought up because we don't want Northcrest Drive and Vernacey Drive just terminate at each other without an intersection. They were saying, well, if you make the driveway into Phoenix Park an actual city street and name it, then that will be the intersection you could change the street name to. And planning and zoning seemed, they seemed on board with that. Again, at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with this plat. Emergency Services has to approve the street names, and we did tell the applicant, also, City Council has the ability to change street names in the future if they see it's an issue with public safety. So whether this ends up being Northcrest Drive and all the way to the property line, for now, if we see it's confusing to public safety in the future, we could always do an ordinance to change this portion to Northcrest Drive or Vernacey Drive, whatever we need it in the future. So,
I'd like to ask staff to just get some preliminary numbers on what a box culvert would cost in that area, as opposed to a bridge there, and just that we know. I know it's something that we're not looking at next year's budget, but if something else gets developed, it may be quicker than we think.
Right.
I'd just like to be prepared and know the best location and what the numbers would be.
I would add, I mean, the unfortunate part when you build new bridges, there is no offset funding for something like that right now.
Right.
Not saying there won't be in the future, but I'm just saying right now there is no 50-50, 80-20 that doesn't exist. So it would be a structure that would be fully funded, by our own taxpayers. So just keep that in mind.
I do keep that in mind, and that's why I guess the sticker shock I'd like to have out in the forefront. Mm-hmm. And then when, I know Mark said this 100 times since I've been on the council, that Rabbit Trail needs to be helped out. We need to help that traffic situation out. And it's just that we have a price tag on what it's going to take.
Yep.
And then we can go from there, whether it's a cost share in the future or not.
And all of this plays a role in that Rabbit Trail intersection. I mean, as that
Sure.
develops to the south, you get multiple access points, and it also relieves a lot of traffic off of South Point Road, which is not the most ideal road for all the traffic that it has.
So let's go back to that a minute. So you're saying that part won't be put in until that develops then, right?
Well, that's the plan, because we didn't want to say it is a bridge. If it's deep enough where we can't do a box culvert, we didn't want to build a bridge to nowhere. We wanted to wait until the property that we're connecting to is ready to develop and have that connection. I mean, we could, but
Yeah,
it would
I'm
be.
just looking at it saying, if we know where it's going to be put in there, can't we do something to expedite that anyway?
I mean,
Like
we
spur
definitely, I think we
development?
know where it's going to be because we
Yeah,
already have
I
a
mean-
portion of the right of way.
I agree, we got to get the pricing and everything and all that, but, if it doesn't develop for years and years down the road, we haven't really solved our problem until that develops.
Right, and it could, you're right, it could
Agreement or
expedite
something
the.
that we can work through to get that done quicker than waiting for it to develop.
I would also,
Pat, go ahead. Well, the only thing I was going to say, I know John has been working on transportation budget for the next couple of years. And so since this would have to be fully funded by us, I know he's...
yeah, we've identified some funding potentially that we get that isn't necessarily from other sources within the county has a transportation sales tax that we get dollars from that isn't a tax that is competitive. We get percentages of money from the counties. It goes to the county and comes right back, albeit a smaller percentage.
Small percentage.
But we do have, that has been building in the account for a few years. And it's somewhere $400,000 potentially right now, with this being kind of the earmarked project, or something on Rabbit Trail. I can't guarantee you this specific spot, but funding has been identified and it continues to build there. So, a bridge, if it was, I haven't been back there, but a bridge, you're looking 700,000, box culvert, maybe you're in the 350 to 400 range, so it's.
What about stormwater
Count. I would say in this, is it really a stormwater improvement project? I know I think if you were removing an existing structure, and I have to maybe defer to Mark a little bit, but I think if you were removing and replacing an existing structure, I think it would be a much easier one. But what stormwater improvement have you done? All that you did was cross over it. It's more of a transportation type project.
I guess I'd just recap what Jeff said. I think we need to find out what the cost would be to get
Oh,
it
yeah,
done,
yeah.
and then figure out from there and try to get it into the budget to do. And if we can get it in the budget, I don't think we ought to wait for the development. That's all I'm saying.
This is
That could facilitate that property to the west if they see the connections there.
It might expedite that.
Yeah, and I think right now with all the issues and with this connection, with what we're talking about right now tonight, it's moving much quicker.
Yeah.
And we are, all those ideas and concepts that we've had are really going to come to fruition, quite frankly, pretty quick.
Yep.
You know, so, or has the potential to.
We can get you a better cost estimate. In the
Yeah,
first
sure.
I think that's what we want.
And I know you said that right now there's no cost sharing. Is there even the potential that would,
I mean,
Never know.
we have, and I don't want to steal the mayor's thunder, but I mean,
No, it's fine.
Prop D, which is
D.
going to be on the ballot this November, has the potential to bring in, I believe, like $212,000 to the city of Washington. Now, once again, I don't know.
on an annual basis, but that's after year.
That's it,
Right.
yeah, and that's why I'm really ahead of ourselves.
How much Camp Street Bridge was?
It's one,
Yeah, I think by the time it was around 1 million.
yeah, 1 million. Typically,
Is that the type of bridge you're talking about?
yeah, it would be, that's a precast bridge. 1 million there, Stafford, or 14th Street was around 1 million, Jefferson was around 1 million. That's kind of just but see, those are fairly large creeks that run through there. This is not. This is just.
A culvert would be
deep
less,
and
wouldn't it?
narrow.
A box culvert would be
Oh,
less.
well, I'll give you an example. We put a 10 by 10 box at Bluff Road, and that's a very long culvert. It's long because the road, it's a much different. You have 3 lanes through there, and that was $300,000. So I mean, you stack up 2 culverts. I mean, you may be in the 400,000. We may have some dollars already kind of out there in an account waiting. It's just it hasn't been budgeted, it hasn't been engineered, it hasn't been anything. And
Do it.
quite else we're waiting. So
Do it.
do it. Well, the issue, and Sal hit it right on. We could build a bridge. Let's just say we can do that. Hypothetically, we could build it. What are you going to do? Barricade it at the end of it, or are we going to build the road to connect it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we're thinking we're going to, that's
It's a timing thing.
That's part of that legal part of it. But yeah, I think if I'd go, I don't know how much road we talking about there.
Well, it's you're looking at. I mean, I'm trying to figure out. We would have.
Be the length of these lots here, so I mean.
That's I don't even know.
125 or 50 foot by 200.
Well, and then you got to get from the end of those lots all the way up to the 12, the red where it kind of turns. So that's a substantial.
Oh, that's if we do the connection.
If you wanted the connection, let's just say
Yeah.
you want a turnkey connection, solves the problem. You got a bridge and you got, try to get some
got roads,
bearings here. You're looking at a quarter mile, half mile of road. I mean, that's a substantial 1,800 feet, another 400 grand. I mean.
Well, that's the
maybe-
number we need to get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd still like to know.
No, we could definitely
I'm sure
get
we
you
can
that.
Work something out with whoever develops that.
Correct.
I mean, to me that seems like it
Well,
would
it'd
sell
be-
that piece a lot quicker if you had the roads there.
That's right. I mean, and essentially, kind of, and again,
I
both
agree.
We're saying
Yeah.
we don't
Totally
want to build a
agree.
bridge in nowhere,
Right.
But yet we want to build a bridge because it's probably going to expedite the situation, and I think we agree on that. So I think we're all
Build it, they will come.
right.
We are all singing on the same sheet of music.
All right, cool.
By the time you're ready to build a bridge, it might be developed and.
It might, but at least we're ready for it by then too.
Right.
So
We need one on the High Street too.
High Street. Where's High Street at?
Yeah. I've heard that before up here.
Battle of the Wards.
Yeah, that's not my.
And I realize I did say this is on the ordinance. We have an ordinance ready. It's not on the agenda tonight because we don't have construction plans yet. So this is just accepting of the preliminary plat. We'll bring in the ordinance later, so.
Thanks, Sal.
I was still on this. Okay, so any questions on,
Thank you.
any questions or comments? So we'll need a,
Make amend,
Yep.
accept in minutes.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Moheski to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you. Good discussion.
Mayor's report?
So the last time we talked about having a speaker at our next transportation meeting, we do have a person. His name is Scott Charton. I think that's how he says it, Charton. Anyway, he was at the Municipal League this week, and he was showing the latest and greatest PowerPoint presentation regarding Prop D. Darren and I attended the session. And so he's going to be here on Monday at our transportation meeting. He has an association with Missouri Press Association. Is that former member of the Press Association? Okay. But anyway, he's familiar with Washington. He'll be here at 9 o'clock for the transportation meeting. So if any of you are available on Monday, they're really working hard on this. If you want to know more, there's a website out there called safermo.com, and that's the website where they're discussing. And you can find, the amount of money that you'll receive and how much the county will receive and all of that. So it will be on the ballot in November. The governor is supporting it, the lieutenant governor. There's great support out of the Highway Patrol. So anyway, he'll be here Monday. And then this evening, it looks like Mary passed out invitations to we will be hosting the Municipal League dinner, the Franklin County Municipal League dinner on October 17th. It'll be held at Jesuit Hall. Your invitation is in our new stationery, just hot off the press. So anyway, so you might want to mark your calendar and RSVP to Mary or Sherry, who's ever going to be doing that. So we have a speaker that evening from Economic Development.
And we may have Prop D.
And we may have someone speaking about Prop D as well. Yes.
Is that it?
Okay. So that's all I have.
City Administrator's report.
Well, as you saw earlier tonight, department heads, since we do not have a admin operations meeting later this month, we asked the department heads if they had anything that needed to be on the October 1st to kind of give you a heads up. With that being said, I've got 2 items that you may be seeing on there. One is the CTS contract. CTS group, or the group that we selected for the Guaranteed Energy Savings Project for the city. I've distributed out a spreadsheet, the latest numbers that they've given me, just to give you an idea of what would encompass that first phase of project savings. And as you can see, a total of about $642,000 for total improvements for all buildings. A lot of this has to do with LED lighting retrofits, but a lot of it is also focused on City Hall, which also includes window replacement throughout City Hall. Another thing that you see, a lot of these, one of the things that they brought to my attention was these block windows that we have behind here are not very energy efficient. That's because we asked them to take a look at this room. That was part of their overall review. And this room in itself, I think there's a lot of energy being lost, I think, out of these windows. So they gave us some, one example is for those. But it's also all the windows throughout City Hall, the lighting from City Hall, but also at the Public Safety Building, even though that building is not that old, there's still LED lights that can be installed, as well as the library, and as well as the fire stations. So those are I just wanted to let you know, we will have that ordinance hopefully after Mark reviews that and has that on your meeting for October the 1st. The second item that I have is we will also possibly have a Wi-Fi contract with WashPC available at that meeting. This would provide Wi-Fi to all of our outside, it'd be for the firehouses, Public Works, the airport, etc., so that they have Wi-Fi in those locations. But the kicker to this too is that they would also provide free Wi-Fi possibly for our downtown area and for some of our parks, with the idea that we could add on in the future as well if we chose. So hold tight for that one. I'm hoping that we can get that. I haven't talked to Mark to see where he's at with that contract. I know there's been some email exchange between WashPC and Mark and myself. So those are the only 2 items I'm trying to bring up with you before October the 1st, but I do have a couple items for you in executive session.
Council comments?
Any comments?
Yes, I have one, Mayor. I've had a few calls. And Captain, I just wanted to tell you, I want to give you kudos, and to Officer Grissom as well. You guys are slowing people down on Winona with the speed trailer. It really is making a difference. So thank you very much for putting it out there. It's been a speed zone. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay.
City Attorney's report, public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Moheski?
Yes.
Heidrich? Pettit?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Holtmeyer? Waterman?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Patchke?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for